Well, those banks have been at it again, haven't they? Cancelling ordinary people for doing ordinary things. I'm Granny Opterix. This is one of those shocking examples of, well, modern society where you can do everything right for 20, 30 years of a working life, and you make one mistake and suddenly your bosses decide to turn you into a pauper, to hound you out of existence. It's terrifying, isn't it? In this case, it's Lloyds Bank at fault, and fortunately and somewhat encouragingly, they have been found at fault. This is from Redmond's solicitors. This is their report. It says here, employee sacked for racist language has been found to have been dismissed unfairly. So we're getting the legal bare bones here. I'll read you the Telegraph article in a minute. Oh, why did it do that? Okay, the facts in Mr. Carl Neil versus Lloyds Banking Group. Mr. Carl Borg, the claimant, was employed by the Lloyds Banking Group, the respondent, continuously since May 2004. Prior to that, he had worked for the respondent from 1993 to 2002 before being made redundant. So he's had, well, nearly 30 years of service there with that bank, one way or the other. He had a good record, with no disciplinary action having been taken against him on any issues. From 2011, the claimant worked for the New Payments Design Authority as a PDA manager, and was also appointed as a mentor on the respondent's new monitoring scheme. Now, here, they didn't have to put this in as far as I'm concerned, but they feel they have to show what a good guy he was, and the only way you can be a good guy now is by demonstrating openly some sort of non-racism. And in this case, Redmond have pointed out that during the time he was working, he mentored 3 people, one of African descent, one of Asian descent, and one non-UK white European employee. In my opinion, that's not really relevant, but anyway. The claimant argued that in the course of his employment, the disciplinary proceedings he was subjected to were not conducted fairly. The sanction imposed of dismissal for gross misconduct was unfair. Proceedings against him failed to take account of his disability, and actions taken against him discriminated on the grounds of his race. And yeah, apart from the fact his disability was dyslexia, I don't think that has anything to do with it either, but the rest for sure. And this particular one, actions taken against him discriminated on the grounds of his race, will come up when he says this in this Telegraph article: white middle-aged men are the bottom of everything. They just become targets. Now, why the complaint was raised: in July 2021, he attended an online MS Teams training session called Race Education for Line Managers. I don't know what MS Teams is, sorry. Education for Line Managers, organised by the respondent, that's Lloyds Bank, for its line managers. The claimant at one point in the meeting, during a discussion on intent versus effect, asked how he should handle a situation when he heard someone from an ethnic minority use a word that could be considered offensive by someone not within that minority. So it appears what he was saying with this: we all know what happens if white people use the wrong language about ethnic minorities, but what do we do if a brown person uses non-PC language about a member of another ethnic minority? And that's a reasonable question, really, if you have to have, you know, if the company insists on some sort of template behaviour that you're supposed to stick to. As he did not get a response from the trainer, that is, the trainer probably couldn't answer the question, because it is indeed a very sticky question. If somebody of Pakistani origin talks about somebody of African origin in a disparaging way, then that trainer would be faced with the idea of this white man telling off this Pakistani man about his racism. And obviously the trainer tried to ignore it. And perhaps, it wouldn't surprise me if the trainer was female, so I'm going to say she from now on. If I read lower down, oh, yeah, she is female. How did I know? Well, anyway, she didn't respond, and in my guess is she didn't respond because she didn't know how to respond. And that might have been the trigger for her to act so badly afterwards. We'll get to that, because this is the very bare bones legal part of it. I'll read you what the Telegraph said when they were reporting his side of the story. The claimant at one point in the meeting during discussion said, what do you do when someone from an ethnic minority uses a bad word? As he did not get a response from the trainer, he then added, the most common example being the use of, and then he didn't say the N-word, he said the word itself. Unfortunately, the claimant used the full word rather than the abbreviation, which caused offence to Miss Ose, the trainer, who was herself black. Well, she still is, I assume. So, she got very offended and she made a complaint to the respondent, Lloyds Bank, and after that, Mr. Borg was, well, dead meat. Now I'll read you what the Telegraph had to say about it. Carl Borg-Neil, who is dyslexic, was awarded £500,000 after the court rules Lloyds unfairly dismissed and discriminated against him. That's bad English, by the way. Lloyds unfairly dismissed and discriminated against him means that the against him is part of the dismissed as well. Lloyds unfairly dismissed him and discriminated against him. Or Lloyds discriminated against and dismissed him. One or the other. I just thought you'd be interested. Okay. A little matter of style. Carl Borg-Neil can't get out. Oh, tears fall down his cheeks. Yeah, all right. And it said here he inadvertently blurted out the N-word. No, he didn't. He asked a serious question in an environment where such a question and such direct language should have been acceptable. Anyway, an employment tribunal ruled that Lloyds had unfairly dismissed. Hang on a minute. I want to get down to this. The cash is of some comfort to Mr. Borg-Neil, a vindication of his campaign to clear his name. What he really wanted, however, was his old job back. Well, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Borg-Neil. You simply, you shouldn't be working with those people. You really are far too trusting. People who would throw you under the bus are not the sort of people you should be around. I'd say good riddance to all of them. It's a kind of double-edged sword. When I set out on this legal claim, I said to my mum, if I have to sell my house, I don't care, because this is about clearing my name. Just look what Lloyds did to him. Lloyds were calling me racist, and that is certainly something I am not and something I have never been. Okay, after a career spanning 30 years with Lloyds and its affiliates, Mr. Borg-Neil believes that the bank had treated him like a pariah. He doesn't have to believe that. They did. In the aftermath of that fatal fateful training session on July the 16th, 2021, and it's taken him more than 2 years to win compensation through a courtroom ordeal that at one stage risked him facing financial ruin. This is an honest man. A man very willing to literally put his money where his mouth was. I feel very discriminated against. You were very discriminated against, Mr. Borgneel. I often wonder, if I wasn't a white middle-aged male, would I have had to go through everything I went through? And the answer is no. There is no way of... Oh, yes, there is. There is no way of telling. But when I talk to my friends, and as you can imagine, a good many are white, middle-aged and male, we all agree that this is the worst thing you can be right now. You're the bottom of everything. And this is a way of shutting up white, middle-aged men. Really? Of making them afraid. And it's a terrible thing. They should be the backbone of our economy and our country. He's also a Conservative councillor. I'm assuming he's doing some good, but we have our problems with politicians, don't we? The Employment Tribunal vindicated Mr. Borgneel in a 46-page judgment that raised serious questions about how major institutions such as Lloyds Bank tackle sensitive issues. Right, so let me just explain what happened. It was about an hour into the online training session, attended virtually by about 100 Lloyds managers during a discussion about intent versus effect. And Mr. Borgneel asked how to handle a situation. We've already gone through that. The bank accepted the comment was made without malice and that the question was valid. Unfortunately, pointed out the tribunal, the claimant used the full word rather than the abbreviation. Now, apparently the trainer went berserk. She was left badly distressed. Oh, I'm sure she was feeling unsafe as well. And took almost a week off work because of this insult to her, insult, this offence, this wounding statement, because he was asking about ethnic minorities being racist to other ethnic minorities. I'm interrupting to remind you to click like and to subscribe and share. Also, I'm constantly being told that YouTube removes subscriptions, so please click the notification bell and check that you really are subscribed. All the links to my other channels are in the description, including links to donation sites. I'm always grateful, of course, for donations, but simply clicking like is the best thing you can do for this video and my channel generally. Thank you. But some colleagues at the training session questioned her reaction. I'm sure some of them did. Good for them. I'm sure others didn't, because they were frightened of ending up in the same boat as Mr. Borgneel. According to one attendant, Mr. Borgneel was very much reprimanded in front of all of us, and when he tried to apologise or explain, he was threatened with, "You will be thrown off the course." So that woman was bullying, irrational, hysterical, and she shouldn't have been in that job. In fact, that whole meeting should not have happened. Another attendant said, "I was shocked by the manner and tone used by one presenter to a colleague. After saying at the beginning this would be a safe environment and it is acknowledged we may make mistakes, she launched into a vitriolic attack. Whilst I do not condone what the colleague said," oh yes, self-protection there, he said nothing wrong. He used a bad word when asking a serious question about the use of that bad word. That is the beginning and the end of it. Not a matter of condoning one way or the other. I believe he was trying to ask a valid question to aid understanding. Mr. Borgneel was taken aback by the trainer's reaction. Yeah, she immediately went mad, he said. I immediately tried to apologise. I didn't mean to upset anybody. I tried to reword the question, but she was just shouting at me. She was basically telling me to be quiet, and if I didn't shut up, because you're a white, middle-aged male, Mr. Borgneel, if I didn't shut up, I would be thrown off the course. I bit the bullet and went quiet. And then after that, a complaint was given to human relations. What's it? Human resources. Sorry. A complaint reached Lloyds Human Resources and disciplinary procedures activated. So this man, a solid worker, a good member of the bank staff, a mentor, said one word in a context of finding out about how to react to that situation, and the answer to that was be hysterical and raise complaints and get this man, well, sidelined if not sacked. I realised later on that once it had got back to HR, which was dealing with the bank's race action plan, that I was doomed. This is a terrible, awful situation, and of course it's happening far too often. And he said that the bank wanted to make an example of me. I don't know what example they thought they were making. He asked a question. The so-called teacher went hysterical, had a hysterical fit, had to take a week off. Look, if you need to take a week off even after somebody has actually made a racial insult to you, then you shouldn't be in that line of work. Well, I don't think anyone should be in that line of work. It's made middle-aged white men terrified of opening their mouths. And when they can't open their mouths, they can't be good managers, they can't be good workers. They can just be keeping their heads down and sticking to procedure. This is not benefiting Lloyds Bank at all. But after he won his case in the summer, Lloyds simply said that it would appeal the decision, issuing a statement, just like what Prince William issued after the Headley Fulani thing blew up. Very similar, isn't it? The same cut and paste pronouncements that declared, we have a zero tolerance policy on any racial discrimination or use of racist language. Mr. Borgneel was devastated. They sacked me and called me a racist. You see, they did this. Zero tolerance policy on racial discrimination and racist language, and he'd been called a racist. Couldn't Lloyds have been more mature and admit their mistake and apologise publicly? No, they couldn't. So he took them back to court and he got damages. And the tribunal accepted that it had hurt the claimant a great deal, that he has been branded a racist. It ordered that Lloyds circulate the judgment to Bank's British board, I don't know what that is, and that they be asked to read and digest it. It warned Lloyds not to make comments to the press which would give a wholly misleading impression. Yeah, but you see, Lloyds, it cost Lloyds, well, I don't know what, £500,000 to give to him, and maybe as much again in legal fees. So £1 million, but they've got £1 million to waste. And meanwhile, they've frightened every other white man in their staff. So I don't think it's a loss from them. The problem is people are being frightened into conformity and silence, and they're being terrified. They say one word wrong and that's the end of their lives. He's in his 50s. What job could he get now, apart from stacking shelves or something in B&Q? That's round here the equivalent of the American Home Depot, by the way. All right, so he got messages of support from former colleagues, but why didn't those former colleagues say, look, if we're going to have to spend our life walking on eggshells, we're going to go on strike now? and tell Lloyds not to do this sort of thing again. No, they didn't do that. They just sent him messages of support, which is fine. But he had to contemplate losing his home to go to court about this, because lawyers don't come cheap. They do for Lloyds, not for people like Neil, though. Right, and this is a shout out to the Free Speech Union. They helped him out. We should all belong to the Free Speech Union. If you haven't paid your fees, join up now. I did, as soon as it opened. As it is, out of his £490,000 award, he'll have to pay £150,000 to a legal team at Doyle Clayton law firm that he praises for its brilliance in restoring his reputation. So it's not $500,000 he got. It's a dreadful situation. I don't know if the BBC has spoken about it, but I'll bet you they haven't. Okay, till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.